Guess what, Chris?
What, Dan?
Episode 10.
We made it.
We made it. You were a bit worried it wasn't going to happen.
I know.
You thought to yourself, oh, no.
It's done.
No. Because
the jinx.
What happened? When we just, on the day we were going to record our 10th episode, I got a little...
You got sick.
I got a little sick.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
No.
Couldn't
That's
come
fair
in.
enough. That happens.
Well, yeah, especially when you're about our age and,
Yeah.
You're a picture of health and I'm
so.
visiting doctors and things like that. But I'm back on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Because I know some people were concerned, especially about me, not about you.
No, well, you're the one who was sick.
I was the one who was sick.
But that's all right.
That's
It's
all right.
Good. You're
Chris,
healthy now.
Chris put in something, as healthy as a 50-odd-year-old guy can be who's on a mountain of pills every morning.
Yeah.
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 I'm smiling.
But we're back. So the music podcast.
Music Bar
podcast.
That's what we're called. Did you forget all that you forgot?
I did. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Since Aaron Lewis and Stain said, it's been a while.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Let's not mention Stained again.
Please don't.
They were awful.
They were.
Fucking awful band. Still going, though. I see that all he does, have you seen the live footage of that guy? All he does is just pro-Trump and anti-Joe Biden during his concerts. And I thought to myself, I don't really want to go to a concert to mind you, that's what Roger Waters is going to do is...
Yeah, it's pretty different.
He'll go anti-Trump and pro-Biden. Let's not get into that.
Yeah, it's a different story altogether.
Jeez.
But yeah, welcome back. Sorry about the break, but we had someone who was unwell, and that's what happened. So we moved on. And
it's our roadie. He was out.
Yep. So yeah, we're back, and thanks for those who commented during the week and the past 2 weeks, and asking where we were, and hope we're back. And
thanks for the cards and letters too,
yeah.
and the flowers I received. Just really,
hit
the heart of my cockles. It really did.
Yep.
Really did. Hey, speaking of being unwell. Vince Neil fell off the stage and he didn't bounce.
He did. Did he bounce?
He didn't go boing and go back up again, back on the stage and went, hey, that worked.
Yeah, he wasn't. What happened to him? Did he hurt himself in the sense?
He broke some ribs.
Broke some ribs. So So he was. That was his excuse why he couldn't sing very well then.
So he's had broken ribs for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And they just announced actually the tour starts next year, June. The Motley Crue and Def Leppard.
This is an interesting thing, the Motley Crue tour. We'll briefly go on because we're going to delve into some 80s.
80s.
Yep. And we're going to talk about big artists of the 80s. Mm-hmm. So who headlines this show?
Motley Crue.
Why?
Because they're the ones who put it together. It's their idea, I believe.
Who sold more records?
Def Leppard.
You got it.
Hysteria, probably.
And Pyromania.
And Pyromania.
And Adrenalize.
Yeah.
Huge selling records. And Hysteria is still as we'll go into, is still one of the biggest selling albums of all time.
Is it really?
Mm.
Because Dr. Feelgood must be up there too.
No.
There you go.
No, Dr. Feelgood didn't sell anywhere in the capacity that Hysteria did.
Wow.
It's interesting. I just think, is it because, who headlines is it a co-headline? Like one night, one guy, one band headlines? I mean, the Crue put on a spectacular show.
Yeah.
There's no denying.
That's right.
And it's hard to come on after a band has literally blown up the stage.
That's what happened when I saw Motley Crue last.
They blew up the stage.
Well, they have that big drum machine, machine that moves around while Tommy plays drums. Mm-hmm. And when he was about to do his drum solo, it wouldn't go up. Yeah,
Brisbane.
Because just before that happened, Nicky Six had his bass that shoots out flames, and he melted the cords that run to the power of it. So, yes.
Nicky should have known better.
He should have aimed it differently.
Nicky should have known better.
It was a good show.
He's been doing this for a while.
They have been, yeah.
It's like, I think we've talked about Slipknot, they have to know where to stand.
Yeah.
Because, there's fair enough, there's 9 of them on the stage. They have to know where to stand.
Yeah.
Just that they don't get blown up.
That's right. And Motley Crue only have 4, and only 2 move. There's a drummer and Mick, and Mick doesn't move, so there's only 2 taken off the ground the stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of people who've hurt themselves, Wolfgang Van Halen hurt himself the other day touring.
And it wasn't his feelings.
No, it probably was actually, but...
No, I don't want to be mean to Wolfgang Van Halen. I'm a supporter of the guy.
Yeah, me too.
He's a super talented guy. His album, look, I'm not as enamored. The album's fine, the Mammoth WVH, but he just seems to get hate
No, he
for
gets hate
using
all the time.
the Van Halen name.
Yeah.
Or why isn't he doing Van Halen songs
Yeah.
during his set? Or, using the Van Halen, how dare you use the Van Halen name and ride on your dad's coattails? The guy can't cut a break.
No, you can't. And his album speaks for itself. If you listen to it, he's played every instrument. He sings everything on there. And he's got a band that tour, and they are very good at doing what that album requires. And they've just opened up for Guns N' Roses in the States for however long. But I think it was his second or last show, or second or third last show, he twisted his ankle or something, so swell up. So he had to wear a moon boot. But yeah, they played on. But yeah, I hope they tour here.
At the moment, tours are a bit
down the track,
up in the air. I think a WVH tour, you've got to have a promoter now who could bring someone to the country and just know that they could sell the tickets.
Yeah, I think they could because of the Van Halen name. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, yeah.
But there you go, the Van Halen name. So they're going to sell the Van Halen name. Then he's going to come out here and not do Van Halen songs.
No, and he should.
And that's how a promoter would sell it. And people would go to the show and go, well, you didn't do any Van Halen songs.
Well, all the Van Halen fans, most Van Halen fans do want to hear this stuff.
Do they?
I do.
See, you're a Van Halen fan, but I see...
That's what I'm saying.
What they look at is who's the casual fan and who's the diehards.
Well, it won't be a big stadium, put it that way.
As I said, I've been to Bruce Springsteen concerts where I've loved everything that he's played because I know Springsteen's material.
Yep.
And even then he plays stuff that I didn't know that, B-sides, and because he's big on doing that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But there'll be people sitting there going, well, he didn't do Born in the USA. Because people will go see Springsteen knowing only that one big record of his.
Yep.
So, that's going to be an interesting one where the promoter thinks he can bring Wolfgang. Probably if they bring festivals again, perfect for a festival audience.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. But on a solo, maybe a Sydney or Melbourne club shows, probably. Yeah.
Or to open for someone else.
Open for somebody. Big. Yeah, actually, that's probably someone might bring him out.
Guns N' Roses are coming over.
Next year now. Actually, well, since we last spoke, Guns N' Roses have postponed the Australian tour.
Yep.
So did Kiss.
Yep.
Kiss postponed their Australian tour till March next year.
Maybe Wolfgang comes over and opens for Guns N' Roses over
He could very well.
That'd be great.
Did you get tickets for Guns N' Roses?
Yeah.
So you got to wait till next year now to go and see them.
That's right. I've never seen them live before, so I can wait another year.
As I said, we've talked about it before. And speaking of Guns N' Roses, we're going to talk a lot about these bands because, as we know, these bands have been around for a while. But speaking of Guns N' Roses postponing the Australian tour, they've released new song, Hard School. I think we both like it.
Loved it.
Yeah, we both thought it was really cool. Didn't like Absurd.
No.
But these are songs that were written and or recorded a long time ago because Slash has now come out and said there's no new material.
No.
Because he's gone back to his...
Well,
they recorded some solo stuff.
They recorded Hard School back in '96.
That's right, yeah.
And then apparently, from my research and watching a Duff interview, he said that after that album, that song was recorded, Slash quit the band. About 6 or 7 weeks later. So that's why it was never released. But it was actually under the working title of Jackie Chan.
That's right, yes.
Because it was actually recorded for a Jackie Chan movie, because Axl Rose is a huge Jackie Chan fan.
That's right, he is too.
So they've gone back into the little vault and found this song and changed it to Hard School, and I listened to that song.
Would they have they would have had to re-recorded certain parts.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, they've got to make it sound like it wasn't recorded back in the 90s. There's different new techniques now and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can go back and touch it up, but...
They do that with everything now.
To me, as soon as I heard it, I listened to it. For those who don't know about the Gold Coast and Brisbane, I was on the way down here, and I listened to it non-stop from Brisbane to here in the car.
You did?
Also on the way back up again.
Yeah, after you dropped me off?
Yeah.
But see, you had to, because I talk all the time. So he's only heard a little bit. He's only heard little bits here and there. We were trying to listen to the new Mastodon album this morning. Well, he's heard it. I haven't heard it yet. I'll be dying to hear that one because
it's such a great.
To be perfectly honest, there's been some good hard rocking albums coming out this year.
Yeah.
And before we get started in our topic, I just wanted to say, did you see what the #1 selling vinyl record was in the country this week?
No.
All for One by the Screaming Jets.
Really?
30th anniversary vinyl pressing. And it's selling really well.
Right.
You love that too. You're a Screaming Jets fan.
Yeah, I used to sing better in the band.
Hey, speaking of vinyl, you told me that you were going in to buy the new Mastodon vinyl.
Yes.
And
I cried.
Yeah, well,
I saw the CD price and it was $37
$37
for the CD.
For a CD.
So when I asked where the vinyl was, they didn't have any at JB Hi-Fi. Only certain stores got it, and that was over $100 for the vinyl.
Over
and it wasn't a deluxe or anything.
No, it
was just a standard album.
$100.
And you had discussed with me on the way down here that that's because there was a shortage.
There's a vinyl shortage in the world.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that crazy?
2021. Who would have thought there'd be a vinyl shortage?
Because of the world we're living in now, and all the stuff, there's now a supply chain issue.
It's just crazy.
Things aren't getting delivered anymore, so all our prices are going up. Why, our petrol has gone way up. Yeah. But yes, because whose new album Old Gods is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. They came out on Facebook on the day it was to be released on vinyl saying, sorry, the vinyl's delayed because of the supply shortage. The red vinyl came out.
Yep.
They were able, because a mate of mine bought the red vinyl one, but the regular black vinyl, and when you come in and you say you've got to pay $100 for a Mastodon vinyl, not deluxe.
And not deluxe, not special
edition,
no different
edition,
print,
nothing.
No different colour, vinyl record.
Vinyl record for $100 with no extra services involved with that. That's my $100. That says a lot about the state.
And that's fine. That's things like that will happen, and I won't buy it until it goes down in price, and I'll just download it and do through Apple Music whatever I'm listening to, Spotify. And that's where I won't buy things like that until I know.
But will it come down in price? This is the thing now. Once I notice things go up, because the demand will still be there.
Maybe. I'm willing to wait a year or two or three. It doesn't worry me. I don't need it on vinyl tomorrow.
No, you don't. No. But I know you're.
As long as I can hear it, which I do, I've got it on my phone. It's a great album from what I've heard so far.
The bit I've heard from it, I think it's better than the last one. The last one left me a little. What was that one called?
Oh man,
came out about 4 years ago now, didn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, that's right. It left me a little kind of for Mastodon.
I felt they didn't really know what they would do, direction they were going.
They're a band that have set a standard that is so incredibly high.
Yeah.
That anything sort of less than what they do is a disappointment.
Yeah.
And probably even their lesser material is probably better than a lot of other bands out there. But yeah, Mastodon are just one of those bands that's like, this is what you need to aspire to.
Yeah.
This is like Metallica, obviously, but for those real diehard metal people, Mastodon is kind of the standard now, isn't it?
Yeah. Tremendous guitar players, musicians, singers,
musicianship,
everything
about
singing, and song and
songwriting.
Their song "Hearts Alive," which is probably one of my favourite songs of theirs, back from one of their first albums.
Yeah,
goes for 13 minutes, and I do not get bored during that song at any stage.
I love the long song that does that.
But then this new album, they've kind of like done like I think you mentioned a while back, the Metallica thing, where they've kind of like the Black Album. They've kind of like simplified, a bit more to the point with this album.
Yes, very much.
But there's still songs on there which go for 7 minutes.
Yes, true, but
they just
the one was a song you played for me that had a very simple guitar riff in it.
Oh, tremendous!
And I said, "This is really cool," but it's clear they want to get played on the radio.
Yeah,
this is not a heavy. So it seems to me they're looking to expand their audience.
Yeah.
Because I suppose it gets to the point where you just sort of look out and you see the same people turning up to your shows all the time.
Yeah.
If bands are happy doing that, that's great. But, they clearly are looking at this stage in their career.
You need to expand.
You do. I think they're probably looking at that. They're probably... I remember I saw this great thing with Bruce Springsteen, like VH1 Storytellers that he did, with just him on the piano or the guitar. Kind of what he morphed into his Springsteen on Broadway show. It was really very good. And he played the song Waiting for a Sunny Day. Big chorus in it, And he said he called them his bank manager songs.
Okay.
So they're the ones when his bank manager rings him up and says, Bruce, you need a bank manager song. You need a song that gets people buying your records again, gets people coming back to see you again. And I think maybe that's what's with Mastodon. Maybe the bank manager went, guys, you need to do more than what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
again, they can't play live. They can't go and play 10 songs which go for 30 minutes each either, So...
Oh, look, Chris, as well as I do, there will be people in that audience going, where are the 13-minute songs?
Yeah.
I hate these new 3-minute, 4-minute songs they're doing. Why are they getting the 30? They're all standing with their arms folded. I'm saying, You always tell you, if you're at a show, you always know the musos in the crowd.
Yeah.
They're the ones with
Who
their
are angry.
arms folded and look like they are not enjoying themselves. They are looking at the guitarist or the drummer. They don't even look at the lead singer.
Or the bass player.
Or the bass
Unless
player.
the bass player is the singer, which it is in Baston's case.
Or the bass player is really an amazing musician.
Yeah, he is.
I'm a bit of a muse. I like going watching the musicians play and all that. But you can just tell those musos, they just stand there.
Yeah.
And they just, nothing impresses them.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Speaking of impressive musicians, Dream Theater have released a new album.
Is it out or is it
It's
coming?
Out. No, it's out. I've got it on my phone. It came out the other day.
Oh, right.
And their last song is 8 tracks. The last track goes for 20 minutes.
I told you before, Dream Theater have never won me over.
No, no.
But there's a link with Dream Theater. There's a report that Mike Portnoy is the drummer. Was the drummer.
Yeah. He was a former...
There's talk about... I think it's only talk. He
Oh,
wants to
yeah,
go with
yeah.
Rush.
I think it might be only talk.
It
From an
has to
interview
be.
he's had, because he's a huge Rush fan.
You can see the direct line between Neil Peart
Yeah,
and Mike Portnoy.
yeah.
You can totally see that line. And you were in the audience for David Letterman, name
Yes.
drop,
Oh.
when Neil Peart was on doing that amazing
Solo.
drum solo. So if you look that up on YouTube and you see Neil Peart's performance on Dave Letterman, Chris was actually in the
I was
audience.
in the audience. Yeah, I was. I never have been... I've been to the show a few times when I lived in New York to go see it film, but I didn't expect... When I heard that Neil Peart was going to be on, and you only found out when you're sitting down already, that I'm like, what's he going to do? Like, it's just a drum solo. And I'm like, oh, here we go. How long is this 5-minute drum solo going to be? How boring is this going to be? But it was actually amazing.
Yes.
The only problem as an audience member watching him, you couldn't really see him because his drum kit's so big.
And it goes around. It went
It
around
goes
him.
right around him.
Yes.
360. And I'm like, is he there somewhere?
Yes.
You know?
It's like when we see Iron Maiden and Nico McBrain is there.
Yeah.
I've never been able to see him.
Yeah, and it's the same with Dream Theater now.
Yeah.
Mike Portnoy used to use a drum kit which was big, but Mike Mangini, the new drummer, his is right round upper level as well. Like,
Oh, right.
I'm like, wow, you know. But yeah, amazing. But yeah, Dream Theater's album is out. It's amazing. It is really, really good.
Okay.
If you like that kind of music,
If you like that kind of music,
yeah, musicianship, and that's why I find Mastodon are very similar. They're just the same kind of players, but they just do a heavier version of it.
yeah.
And because they have a better singer or singers,
Yeah, they've got
Mike-
multiple singers.
Yeah, that helps. Where Dream Theater don't have that, and I do get a bit tired of the singer's voice. But anyway, that's another story as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with some. You're going to love hearing somebody sing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Kiss always shared the vocals around.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah,
Yeah, the early material.
Yep.
Yeah, all four of them. That's what they wanted because it's what the Beatles did.
Oh yeah, they did too.
That's exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know.
All four of them sing the
Yeah.
Beatles.
Yes.
Yeah, even Ringo had a
Yep.
song.
Even they let Ringo sing a few. You know.
Yeah. That's crazy.
You know. Oh, poor jokes. Ringo's better than.
Yeah.
We haven't even hit the topic of the show yet.
No.
We're just sort of coming back. I suppose we're just doing a debrief. What's happening, everything. There's a lot going on. You know, when you sort of think, oh, what's happening with music now, you just kind of look at it and you think, well, what is happening? Now we've just sort of spoken
Touch
about
base
it.
on a few things.
Touch
but
bases. That's all we've really kind of done.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
But,
80s.
the 80s.
We all love it, don't we?
Do we really, Chris?
Well, it seems to stick around forever.
It seems to have stuck around
I've
forever,
said in
hasn't
the
it?
past podcasts, I'm still driving the truck every morning, hearing the same songs on
Well,
the
that was,
radio.
we were talking 91, so we're going to go back. So the year is 2021.
Mm.
Now, the Rolling Stones have just released the 40th anniversary of the Tattoo You album. Came out in 1981. Start Me Up's on that album, Waiting for a Friend, Neighbours. You know, it was probably the last really great Stones record, I suppose, if you're a Stones fan. So, yeah, you're not. Well, it's okay. I'm not going to die on that hill, mate. Dio maybe, but not the Rolling Stones, okay? I love them. I think they're great, but, you know, just we'll get into that, you know. But we're looking back on an album that came out 40 years ago in the rock and roll world. Think about when we were kids in the 80s. There is no way we would have looked back on an album that came out in 1941 and gone, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of that record.
No way.
It's because of the diametric change in music in that particular time. It was like a seismic change
Yeah.
between what was popular in 1941, which would have been that old-timey music. We're living in the war. Come home, boys. to Start Me Up. You know,
Yeah.
that's huge. But from 81 to 2021, there is still a big change in music because the Stones will still play shows, but they're old men now.
Mm.
You know, we've just lost, but they're still playing.
Yep.
There was no way someone from the 40s was still going to be playing in 1981.
No.
No one would go see that.
No.
No one would go see that act. So why are we looking back on the 80s like we do? Why? Why? Because when the 80s came along, the 70s was really like, the 70s is poo. But as we sort of moved on a bit more, people got more nostalgic. I remember in the 90s, we got nostalgic for the 80s. I went to clubs that had 80s nights.
That's so
And you'd go, yay, listen to this song. But now we go back, we're older now, and we look back at the 80s and go, oh my, remember when we used to go out and do this?
Yeah.
I worked for a commercial radio station, and those 80s weekends were like, you get the biggest response from people. You know, oh, that was when I was a kid, you know.
Well, I think I mentioned before, my favourite songs in my life were always an emotional kind of attachment. So
Always is, yeah.
the people who listen to the 80s, like that's when MTV, and that's when the fashion changed so much from what it used to be to the happy pants and to the...
It was a coming of age.
Yeah, it was.
Apparently it has been scientifically proven that what you got into at age 14 is what you probably do end up listening to mostly for the rest of your life. That's why they say there will be a lot of people who were 14 when Eminem was huge, who will grow up, and that will be that's not a bad thing in any capacity whatsoever, but they will grow up with Eminem as their kind of, and hip hop, that whole genre of hip hop at that time. And
like Run DMC?
Yeah.
That came out then?
84, 86 was when Walk This Way came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just an emotional attachment.
I think it was the connection with radio as well.
And video.
And video. Video was such a massive thing. It's funny how you look at artists that were huge in 1979 and then in 82 when MTV launched in America. And all of a sudden, there was this shift with how an artist looked.
Well, it's like Money for Nothing.
Yeah.
By
Dire Straits.
Dire Straits.
Yeah.
That song of theirs was one of the first videos for MTV, wasn't it?
No, that came out in 85, but it was they used the MTV slogan, I want my MTV.
Yeah.
And
but the way it was filmed as well was more animation than probably...
It was a groundbreaking video for its time.
And that really made people go, wow, this is amazing what you can do on TV and video clips, instead of seeing the band live or just seeing them walk around and, whatever. So that kind of changed. So I think
also, too, coming out of America in the early 80s were those LA Motley Crue rats, and they all looked great.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you liked the music or not, but they had the hair, the costumes, the makeup, and those boys were good looking. They were good-looking boys, Def Leppard. They were all good-looking guys. They didn't look like, in the 70s, everyone had mustaches.
Yeah.
I saw this old video of Deep Purple on YouTube the other day doing Child in Time. Brilliant.
Yep.
Ian Gillan had one of the most amazing voices. But if you looked at that band from 1970, they all had hair, mustaches.
Yeah.
They all looked like old guys, but even then they were probably hippies. But the hair was unkempt and undone, and they just looked like they walked off the street, plugged in their amps, and away they went. Yeah. Kiss kind of changed that a bit, but by the 80s it became this
glam.
The look. The look was such a big thing for an artist. Before they made an album, they had to look at how to present this particular record. I was listening to the other day that Pina Colada song by not Rupert Hine, but I forget, Rupert something. You feel like Pina Colada, right? And I remember the video to that. He was just a guy in like almost pink slacks and a red shirt with a mustache, just singing this song, crooning this song. And you knew that within 3 short years, no one would have watched that video. Yep. No one would have looked at that. So it was this marriage of music and visuals, which meant you had to have the songs. Now, this is where I'm coming to. It seemed like the 80s was this time, especially around 82. And I think this all started with Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yep.
Michael Jackson and his producer Quincy Jones went into the studio with the deliberate idea that they wanted to make a record where every song was a hit single that could be played on radio.
Yeah.
Now, if you look back at the 70s, biggest selling act of the 70s. Who was the biggest selling act of the 70s, Chris?
Oh, I was born in the 70s and I didn't listen to any of this kind of music, but I'll probably put in there Led Zeppelin.
You got it.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin, biggest selling act of the 70s.
Yeah.
They never really released singles. Led Zeppelin were an album band. Artists that released singles, Pink Floyd were the same.
Yep.
It wasn't until disco came along that singles became sort of a thing in the 70s again.
Yep.
But even then, the singles were generally the first 3 songs on the record, and the rest of it could have been filler, unless they were going in there and making one of those great albums that just start to finish, woe to go, great record. And it's always singles have driven album sales, so to speak. But in the 80s, it was very much they were going to sell the album. If you picked up this record, it was going to be wall to wall the greatest hit. It was almost like picking up the greatest hits of this particular band.
Yeah.
It became the thing. And Michael Jackson's Thriller really set that benchmark.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There were 9 songs on Thriller, and it had 7 hit singles.
Far out.
Yeah.
Has that been done since?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
We'll get to that. I have this great book. I bought this series of books, the 100 best-selling albums of the... I've got the ones, there's ones for the 60s, there's ones for the 70s, 80s, and 90s. There's none from the 2000s because literally by the 2000s, music just changed. That was another changing moment in music. It wasn't a style of music, it was the way we consumed music. And all of a sudden, the computer, the internet, MP3, downloads, Napster. Changed the...
LimeWire.
Changed the whole landscape, didn't it? And the music industry really didn't know what to do about it.
Right.
When you get Lars Ulrich suing his fans for doing music, they took a long time to recover from that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, but again, I still think it was the right thing to do.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't.
It wasn't.
They should have sued the fans.
I don't think they sued them.
No, but what they should have done...
They didn't really sue anyone. They actually just threatened... Well, I guess threatened, but mentioned that I still believe artists have a right to make money off their products.
I do believe that, yeah.
And they should be able to distribute the way how they want to distribute.
What they did wrong was Metallica went at it on their own.
But they didn't originally. They had all these... They had a bunch of hip-hop artists and rap artists, but also other people who were like, yes, we'll support you.
But then when they realised they were going to alienate their fans, they all disappeared, and it was left to Lars Ulrich to sit there and talk about how we want money. Give me money. I have all these... someone's got to pay for my Basquiat paintings and stuff like that. Someone's got to pay for all my divorces and all that sort of... my child support. And that alienated the fans.
But I do believe after that happened and things died down, I think artists are very appreciative of what Metallica went through, Lars went through to do what he did.
The record companies across the board completely dropped the ball in every capacity when it came to that. They completely dropped the ball. Yeah. To the point where literally the record industry, the entire recording industry went to Apple. Yeah. That's why we have Apple Music. Simple. Yeah. They went to Steve Jobs and said, help us. And he said, I will create a platform where you can put all your stuff. And I'll call it iTunes.
Yeah, and it worked.
And it worked.
Very well.
Worked incredibly well.
And the iPod came out and you could have it all in one hand. It's like 10,000 songs in your hand. Like, wow. Yeah.
My playlist goes for days.
Yeah. But speaking of Michael Jackson Thriller, he had mentioned him before about MTV. His video clips, they were like short film.
Weren't they amazing?
And that's what also, I think, makes people go back to the 80s, because watching like Thriller, for instance, and the whole...
Thriller's still a great video.
Everything about it was just amazing to sit there and watch that for the first time going, what is this? This is a movie in itself, and it has a great storyline, and it obviously had Michael Jackson and everything going on about it. It was just like, brilliant. Everything about it was brilliant.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the album, the way they recorded the album too, was big, and it sounded... just sounded like... I always feel the album sounded like it was bigger than everything you'd heard. Yeah. It was a production.
Yeah.
But it still sounded light and it sounded accessible. It didn't sound dense. It sounded like you could just put that record on and play it and you'd feel like dancing, or you felt like you felt good about the record. And look, biggest selling albums of the 80s and 90s, and they are in order, and it's interesting to look at. We'll go mainly through the top 10, but of course, Michael Jackson's Thriller is the number one selling album of the 1980s. It is still the number one selling album of all time. Nothing will beat Thriller. Nothing will. Alrighty? But the number two album is Back in Black by AC/DC.
Yeah,
Big one, AC/DC. That album just continues to sell. Now, I think I told you this once about the reason why AC/DC's back catalogue sells so well and continues to sell well.
No greatest hits.
No greatest hits album.
Yep.
Malcolm Young said while he was alive, AC/DC would never release a greatest hits album. And when Malcolm did die, some of the comments were, so I suppose the greatest hits album's coming out now. Still hasn't.
Still hasn't.
Good on you, Angus.
Yeah.
But and Metallica are the same.
Yep.
Metallica have never released a greatest hits album. The closest they've come is live recordings, but they've never released a greatest hits. And they're the other out working in a record store. AC/DC and Metallica's back catalogue.
Yep.
And Led Zeppelin, of course. But yeah, those two are the ones that have the biggest back catalogue sales. Did you know, with AC/DC, and this is probably the biggest selling Australian album of all time too.
Yeah, it would be.
But not in this country. How's that?
Yeah.
When back in... Hey?
Didn't think of that before.
Yeah. Whispering Jack is still the biggest selling album in this country.
Wow.
Yeah. By an Australian artist as well.
That was the 80s.
That was the 80s. Yeah. And that was loaded with hits, that song.
Yeah. I remember that being played in high school, and all the girls in my class just loved John Farnham, and that was being played everywhere. And I just couldn't handle it. It was just like, this is so sad for music. I wasn't a fan.
But as an older
understand it.
But as an older person, I really appreciate John Farnham's vocal ability.
Oh, when you get older, I was a heavy metal fan, so
of course,
I didn't like anything except for heavy metal. But look back at it now, it's like, this is amazing.
He was an amazing singer.
Yeah.
Still is.
Still is. Yeah.
His technique is incredible. To the point now where Celine Dion tours Australia.
With him.
Yeah. Brings John Farnham out on, because she was doing You Are the Voice, and she was saying to him, you are the one that inspired me.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it?
That's incredible.
That's good for John.
It's good for John. He's done all right out of it, I think.
Well, I used to like watching him on Hey Saturday, because he was a very funny guy. Yeah,
actually. He was actually
really
he
funny.
Actually had a good sense of humour. Yeah,
he was quick-witted too.
Yes. No, that album came out in 1980 in the world, and I think by 81, the Australian album in this country that outsold Back in Black was Sirocco by Australian Crawl.
Wow.
And Kev here at KL Studio, he's got a signed copy of a Sirocco up on the wall here. And you sort of, for those of you who don't know, Australian Crawl were a big band in this country.
They were.
And their lead singer, James Rain, still pulls a big crowd. And people still love those Australian Crawl songs. They never really quite cracked the overseas market, but here in Australia, Aussie Crawl, man, they were a big band.
I only found out a while ago what Australian Crawl actually means.
It's a swim.
It's just the doggy paddle.
Yeah, it's the doggy paddle.
I never knew that. There's a swimming school around the corner from my house, and it's called has Australian Crawl on the side. I'm like, what's that mean? And I worked it out. It's actually the doggy paddle.
Is it the doggy? They call it the Australian Crawl. I always thought it was something like freestyle or a version of the freestyle, the Australian Crawl.
No,
it must be the Australian Crawl. Well, there you go.
There you go. Bit of fun facts for everybody at home.
I know. Look, Back in Black wasn't loaded with singles, but I tell you now, You Shook Me All Night Long, Back in Black, Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, and Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution all get played on the radio still. Even though they probably weren't officially released as singles, but that's 5 songs.
Yeah.
That's 5 songs, 5 hit singles. Good. Not many albums now are bringing out. I don't even think Adele has 5 songs coming off a record now. Maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But 5. Thriller had 7.
Brittany would she?
Oh, back in the day,
she probably. She would have
I reckon only about 3.
Maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah. I think the other one that had 7 number 1 singles was the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
Okay.
So we can go back to this.
Rhythm Nation probably would have had a few.
About 3.
Really?
Yeah, I think about 3. Black Cat, Rhythm Nation, and Miss You Much. They're the only ones I know that were singles. Might have been a couple of others. Yeah.
Carlisle had a few.
Yeah, we know about that. Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen, number 3. Massive record. We don't sort of realise how big Bruce Springsteen was during the 80s. Yeah. But yeah, massive record. But we'll go into number 4, biggest selling debut album of all time. Chris, what is it?
Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses.
Still a killer record, isn't it?
It's never going to disappear off my listening list.
I still, when people put on YouTube them playing songs from Guns N' Roses, I will watch.
Oh,
because I like to see how the guitar parts were played.
Yeah.
It's nothing sounded like it.
No one acted like it.
No, they acted. That's probably where Guns N' Roses. They were the most dangerous band in the world. You thought they were going to implode any minute now, but they made these incredible songs.
Yeah.
These incredible songs.
They're all alcoholics. They're all drug addicts. They're all the ones who smash the hotel rooms and all that kind of thing. Everything that you based on what a rock and roll star did, they did, and then tenfold probably.
And yet, amazing musicians, all of them.
Absolutely.
And songwriters.
Yeah.
They had it. And the funny thing was, when they were on the strip, because they were too rough for they weren't pretty boys.
No.
They tried to make
You couldn't see Slash.
You couldn't see Slash.
Under his hair.
Izzy was strung out as all hell.
Yeah.
And Axl was... he was a little crazy.
Eccentric?
Crazy.
Crazy?
A little, yeah. Axl was very unpredictable sort of person.
He was. Always has been.
And Duff was the punk.
Yeah, he was.
He was a punk. He was a Seattle punk.
He was.
And as I've said before, he was in the farts in Seattle, So when the Seattle scene happened, and he knew all those guys.
Yeah.
Because, once you're in a music scene, you know everybody, And, but I feel nothing sounded like it at the time. No. It sounded like a real, like 5 guys who were in a gang made a record.
Yeah.
And even they have never sounded that good ever since.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah. They got too polished by the time you use Your Illusion. They've become big rock stars. The album was polished. But even though there is a polish to this record, nothing sounds like Appetite.
And every song on there is just amazing.
Oh, there's not a dud track.
No.
I remember when I first put that on, it was just like, wow.
Mm.
I actually, I remember I was watching the MTV Video Awards at a friend's place one night. He was having a party, and his party was a bit dull, so I went to the TV to watch this. And I remember there was me and my brother were there, and there's a couple other people, and they got Guns N' Roses. Sam Kinison came out and introduced Guns N' Roses, and they came out and did Welcome to the Jungle. Yep. It wasn't Sweet Child O' Mine, Welcome to the Jungle. And they killed it.
Yep.
They were. I just remember, this was the first time me and my brother were just sitting there going,
wow.
What is this? And I remember there was this other guy sitting there going, this is awful.
That's funny.
He was this real straight guy I went to school with, square, and he was like, this is awful. And I just remember me and my brother just going, what? This is we heard of this band, but this is them?
Yeah.
This is incredible. This is incredible. Look, I don't want to go to every album. What I want to make is I'm going to go to an album here. Purple Rain from Prince is there. Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits.
Yeah.
Before I go, 34 weeks at number 1 in Australia.
That's
34 weeks at number 1. Who cares?
Yeah, I know.
Do you really listen to this record? I don't know.
I don't own it.
I'm talking about the singles. Def Leppard, Hysteria, comes in at number 10. One of the biggest selling albums of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 7 singles off Hysteria.
7.
Women, Rocket, Animal, Love Bites, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Armageddon It, and Hysteria.
Wow.
Were all singles.
12 tracks altogether?
12 tracks.
And 7 were hits.
7 were singles. Love Bites was a number 1 single.
Really?
Yep.
And that's because I think the female audience really was attracted to that band.
Well, they lightened it up a bit. They weren't as heavy.
No.
But to me, that was still... The musicianship and the craftsmanship was so good. I've seen them live, and they are just a fantastic band.
Yeah, I've never seen them live.
This is why we had this discussion earlier about the Def Leppard Motley Crue, who headlines.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make, because after seeing that, and that's off one album.
And Pyromania is only a couple behind.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, Pyromania is in, in the 20s, I think. It's in there somewhere. Yeah. There it is, number 23, Pyromania. So in the 1980s, it would have been between Def Leppard and Michael Jackson as to the biggest selling acts of that decade.
Is Motley Crue in there at all?
Not in the slightest.
Not,
You'd have thought Dr. Feelgood. Because the number 100 is...
Dr. Feelgood was a 90s album.
No, 89.
89, was it?
Yep.
Okay.
So Blizzard of Oz came out in 1980, 4 million records sold. That's your number 100. I think Dr. Feelgood sold less copies.
Really?
That's how big Ozzy Osbourne was too.
Oh, I love Ozzy.
Oh, Blizzard of Oz,
Ozzy's
you know.
great.
I mean, there's some interesting acts in here, and these books are great to read because it makes you realise, oh, this was big, oh, that was big, you know.
Oh,
ZZ Top
Afterburner.
were big, yeah, Afterburner. The Big Chill soundtrack.
No.
That's when the nostalgia for the 60s kind of
Yeah.
kicked in, you know. Journey were massive in America.
Quite
Not
right.
here in Australia.
No.
They were not big in Australia, but in America, Journey are like soundtrack. Quiet Riot. First heavy metal song to go number 1. Come on, feel the noise.
Yep, we had that in our house as well, played quite loudly downstairs.
I'm sure you did, you little rebels.
It wasn't me, it was my brothers.
But all of these albums have multiple singles off them, and I think that was a real the thing for the 80s was this, and for Australian bands too, and these are all overseas international acts, but even you look at, as you mentioned before, The Swing, Kick for Any Excess is in here because it sold 7 million copies in America.
Yeah.
But the other albums that they released, The Swing, wall-to-wall hits, and all of them good. Listen Like Thieves, wall-to-wall hits, you know, the Midnight Oil.
Yep.
They were
Hunters and Collectors.
Hunters and Collectors, wall to wall. They went into the studio and went. You know, even Cold Chisel had hits.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They multiple hits. They went in. I mean, all bands go in to make a popular record, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it was really in the 80s when they went radio songs.
Yeah.
These have. Will they sound good on the radio? Can they be played on the radio? And when Thriller goes in, and that was the mindset when they made Thriller. And apparently that was the mindset when Mutt Lange went in to make Hysteria. Every song, he wanted at least 7 singles off the record, like Thriller. He said, we want to make the heavy metal Thriller. That's what we're making here.
Yep.
Every song was a potential
And
hit
they
single.
did.
Born in the USA had 6 singles off it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's this what that does too is that increases the longevity of the band. Like an album like Whitney Houston's debut album, which is the number 5 record in there, comes out in 1985. And in 1987, singles are still coming off that record. That doesn't happen nowadays.
No.
If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. There's no...
Singles don't even last months anymore, really.
No.
You know.
No.
Even albums don't even make it, really.
I think, because we went on the radio show I was doing last year, we would cover off the top 5.
No.
And...
Singles.
Yeah, top 5 singles every week.
Yep.
Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. Just never left the top 5.
That's still played now.
That's a great song.
That's a TikTok song.
Oh, it is now, yeah.
Yeah.
But Blinding Lights, I thought was one of the most perfect pop songs of 2020. I thought it was a brilliant song.
Yeah.
But, that was probably one of the last singles I know. And Old Town Road, the Little Nas. Yeah. That's almost novelty in my books. But Blinding Lights, I thought, was beautifully produced and beautifully put together. That was sort of the last single that had real staying. It wouldn't go.
No. That's been played every day. I still hear it every day.
You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And there was a couple of Ed Sheeran ones too, but...
Yeah, there is.
I mean, do you like Ed Sheeran? Yeah, there we go. He just gets a big shoulder shrug from me, but geez, he's popular, isn't he?
He is. He's actually got COVID at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Get better. Get well, Ed. You write your own
If you're
songs.
watching.
If you're listening, Ed, I hope you are.
I don't mind him.
I don't mind.
It's
like everyone raves about Adele, but I kind of go, yeah, I get it. She's great. But if I hear her voice too long, it does my head in. And I go, I can only just listen to Adele in short little
Yeah, you've got to be in
bits
the
and
mood for
pieces. So this is why I think we have this connection with the 80s in
Yep.
such a huge way. Our generation, at least.
Yeah, yeah.
And I suppose when young... I know my kids do hear some of these 80s songs and love them. Like, my middle daughter, I worry about her music taste. Every time she gets in the car, can I put on a song? And I'm like, you've relinquished your music rights so many times. And she plays something new that I go, this is just terrible. It's got nothing good going for it. It's even badly recorded. I don't know why you like this. But she loves I'm Still Standing by Elton John.
Oh, wow.
Loves that song.
Yep.
You know, we'll play it. She loves Queen.
Yep.
You know, and Queen were a band, like, everyone raves about Queen. Great singles. But I never thought they had a great album. Wall-to-wall great album in them.
Start to finish, yeah.
Start to finish. But singles, Foo Fighters are another band. I don't think they brought out a great album in any way, but singles, pile them up.
Singles, yeah.
There's a lot of good singles there from the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
So, in the 80s, there was that mindset of put as much, everything has to, they were all going for it. And the record sales showed. You know, like, that's when I wanted to buy records. It was just all during the 80s, you know? Like, you were Whitesnake's 1987 album. Because of the singles. You saw it all on MTV.
Yep. And then you have Europe with Final Countdown.
There was only one. They only
had one song out of that.
I know. Can you...
One of the biggest songs, you still hear it quite often. But
you hear that too.
The whole album was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was the problem, though. Some bands just...
One hit song.
And Europe is still going.
Yeah, they're still touring.
That's what kills me. They had one song.
Yeah.
And it's like... Yeah, it's like when Poison came out with their greatest hits. They had about 4 good songs. And this greatest hits album, there's had 20 songs on it. I'm like,
really?
Were there 20 good Poison songs?
Nah, that's not true. That's not... There's no way.
There's no way. But hey, we're back, you know, on the Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison tour. Everyone's saying Poison are performing well. They're all in great shape. They're all performing well. Def Leppard, they're all performing well. But Motley Crue, who headlines the show, Chris?
Yeah, it'd be very interesting.
I'm sure they would have had to have had that worked out in the...
Maybe if they're playing in America, Motley Crue do. If they take it over to Europe, then Def Leppard do.
Def Leppard would have to headline Europe. But if Def Leppard have sold these records in America... I remember I read a stat once. Their first greatest hits album, Vault, or whatever it was called. No, Vault was the B-sides and stuff. There was a greatest hits that they brought out in the early 90s, or in the mid-90s. And it was selling 5,000 copies a week in America. It's 20,000 a month.
Wow.
That's over 1 million records a year of their greatest hits. That's how big Def Leppard were and still are in America.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's because 7 singles of Hysteria.
And the song Let's Get Rocked.
Yeah, see, Def Leppard could just come out and just do the singles. I like Let's Get Rocked.
So do I. It's fun.
I suppose it rocks out of the question. It's so dumb, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's just fun.
But without taking anything away from Motley Crue in there, Dr. Feelgood did have 5 singles off that. So on that album. They were going for it. Because I remember listening to some of the earlier Crue albums and thinking the singles were great, but the album tracks were a bit...
Yeah, Girls were one of those for me.
Yeah, Girls.
A couple of good songs, not much on...
Not much else. Was Dr. Feelgood was a bit more kicking. Bon Jovi, when they made Slippery When Wet, they were going for it.
Yep.
To the point where I think they played the songs they recorded to a group of teenagers in New Jersey and asked them to pick the songs that they liked.
Right.
So when they went in for that album, that was their kind of...
What year was that? That would be in
86 it came out, but in 87 it got huge.
And when did New Jersey come out?
88. So just in one Bon Jovi album after the other in the late 80s. I have to take my hat up to them. When grunge hit, they came out with Keep the Faith and just almost kept their fan base away.
They did. Yeah, that was a good album too, actually.
There is some good stuff on that. Yeah. So that's my take. Anything else you want to add to the 80s here, Chris?
Not really. I think that's...
Except Belinda Carlisle had a solo career in the late 80s.
No.
She started that.
She did.
Yeah.
Mad About You was a great song. Again, the album probably wasn't a great album, but a couple of hits. That's where I think Runaway Horses was a great album. Had quite a few hits on that. I'd like to know how many, though. I don't know offhand, but at least I can think of 3 or 4.
Another big selling Australian album, which is in this list, is Men at Work's Business as Usual.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's another one. Who Can It Be Now and Down Under. Mm-hmm. What's the rest of the album like?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I've never heard it. But it was that early. That was before one song can do it for you.
Yeah.
One song can do it for you. And Down Under, that thing was a monster.
And apologies to those who contacted me after we did our Australian episode, because we didn't mention Men at Work at all.
I've just mentioned them. And I don't think they're as good as you think they were. I think they had 1 or 2. Actually, I liked Overkill. I thought Overkill was a really cool song. Yep. But really, is Down Under the best song you've ever heard in your life?
And the singer of that who wrote it, Colin Hayes.
Yeah.
I found out the other day that Troy Sanders, the bass player and co-singer from Mastodon,
his
first album he ever bought with his own money was that album.
business as usual.
Yep.
It was
and
huge in America.
He is right now friends with Colin Hayes. They ring and speak to each other all the time, and they're actually thinking of doing an album together or writing some songs together. So how would you get that connection? Is just crazy, but they are really good friends and they talk all the time.
Isn't that funny how some...
And, I'm not sure where's Macedon from, but for...
Georgia, aren't they? Atlanta, Georgia or something like that?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
From Troy Sanders as a 14-year-old, whatever he was at the time, to buy his first album as an Australian band is just crazy. But
didn't I tell you about 14?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's now friends with Colin Hayes, and they're going to do some recordings together down the track. So,
all right, well, that album has had, even though I said righto, I have to take that back. Because that album, we've gone from Mastodon to Men at Work.
Yeah.
I love our connections on this show.
Crazy, isn't it?
Mastodon to Men at Work, and we've managed to connect it.
Mm.
We have to end it there then, Chris.
We have to end it there. No problems at all. But yeah, please, thanks for waiting around for the next episode.
Like,
episode
subscribe.
10. Like, subscribe. And comment below any of your favourite songs from the 80s and what they mean to you. And
what the 80s mean. Do you agree that it was because what we hear on the radio, and the videos, of course?
The videos, I still think, attached everybody to music in a way that never happened in the 70s.
No.
So that's definitely visual.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, and bye for this time.
See you later.
See ya.